Hi everyone, I'm Gabriel Perera. I am your host of A Modern Animal. In this podcast, myself and my friend Dr. Mike Woodrow will be digging into all things related to the life of a modern animal. Cats, dogs, horses, and the occasional fish. We will cover it all, building on Mike's more than 35 years of experience as a veterinary surgeon in Australian country practice, suburban practice, and more recently as the owner of businesses across the pet care space. Mike.
Great to be here with you, Gabe. What an interesting journey we've had over so many years.
It has been. Mike, you've been a business person as long as you've been a vet. Tell us, I guess, go back in time and tell the audience your experience. How did you start working with animals? How did you begin this process that you've been on to become where you are today?
Yeah, I imagine that many people could just relate to that first love of animals, and that was really a connection with my mum. A really strong memory was was my mum. And just think back to different times when my mum went to my dad and said, "I'm thinking about getting a dog," and Dad said, "It's a no." And so she just went and got one. She just went and got one anyway, that's my mum, like a strong, powerful woman who knew her mind. So I was just a little kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old. And Dad, fantastic guy, he said, "Okay, so you got a dog. I'm going to choose the name." So he chooses Fang, F-A-N-G, like the two Fang. So, and we've got this cutest little
what was the breed?
Dog. Just every breed you can think of. I think it was some kind of Labrador Kokos Spaniel cross, but a really solid black color, really cool little guy. So imagine I'm 9 years old. I've got my very first dog, and I enjoyed his company up until my mid-20s. And so think of those formative years, right? Yeah. He was tenacious. There was no way he was going to die. He was powering on. I'd left home. I'd gone to university. I'd become a vet. I'd moved to England, and these were the days, and like I'm talking about the late 80s, when I was still writing letters. I was writing letters from Mum, and I got an aerogram that said that Fang had died at he was 18 years old. And so, you asked a simple question, was how did this whole journey begin? I think it began the same way that so many people that just fell in love with, he was another part of my family. He was almost like a brother, and really just sparked a love of animals. And I had the privilege. So many people would love to work with animals, and many people do. I had the privilege of really studying and then just making it a profession. So that's where the journey began with Fang. He was such a dude.
So did you grow up on a farm? Did you grow up? Were you on
land? No, I was just in the suburbs.
Just a suburban kid.
Yeah, suburban kid with one dog, and I definitely remember talking to him and just talking about stuff that you couldn't talk to anyone else about. And he was really understanding dog. He just look right at you and go, "I get it, Mike. I get it." So I was living in Northern Australia at the time, and the opportunity came up to go and study to be a vet, and that was in Brisbane in Queensland, and it's kind of like Northern Australia. Jumped on a train when I was 17 and travelled about 30 hours and went to uni, and that was without doubt one of the better decisions of life. 5 years later, graduated. And have had such a, so I guess, that imagine a world where you can every day just work with living things, sometimes make things better. Such a, if you think about the animal kingdom, the diversity of, so, I've worked with orangutans in Malaysia, and I've treated 6 snails in the UK.
What?
But along the way, Gabe, I got to meet you. And so I'm just thinking, surely this is the joy of my journey is just intersected with the joy of your journey. Tell us your story.
Yeah, well, thank you. So again, I didn't actually know the background with your mum. So very similar background. So my mum was animal mad. So she grew up on a farm in the middle of the North Island, New Zealand. And she, as soon as my parents had the money, so my dad was a doctor, my mum was a nurse. As soon as they had the money, in came the animals. So she started off with dogs, of course, and then we moved from dogs to horses to cats to goats to sheep to geese to chickens. But the constant was always the dogs. And she was an incredible woman. It sounds like your mum a little bit. Just, if there was a stray dog on the street, in it came, and it lived with us for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. I think her peak dog state was 3 collies, so the full-size collie, the Lassie collie. I think we had 2 chihuahuas and something like 2 or 3 cats. So this was just the domestic animals, right? Forget the farm animals. So that was my experience with animals. And so, grew up riding horses from a very early age. And here's the embarrassing secret. As a young man, I used to wear a bow tie and travel around the countryside in New Zealand by myself with my toy dogs, showing them in dog shows. So have you seen the comedy Bet? Have you seen that comedy Best in Show? If you haven't, you must go and see it. It's ridiculous because that's the story of my life. That's my life.
Now
So
I'm thinking
there would be like
surely
they're
in
all
future
they're all
episodes
the
we are going to have to get this image of Gabe at show with bow tie on.
Mike.
This is something we've got to share.
I had a. And I'm happy to do that under confidentiality, of course. But I had a cupboard. I used to remember I had a cupboard in my parents' house full of these bloody dog show ribbons. So, like, I was a total weirdo kid with these little dogs flying around the country at dog shows. So, anyway, there's my secret dog story.
Yeah, and I guess what it makes you wonder is, in this space, like, are you a weirdo really, or it's surely this is, it sounded like your family collected life in its many
So here's the thing. So
as
your dad, though, like your dad, like my dad was totally kind of like, are you kidding me? Another bloody dog, So, but sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, not at all. Just to say that, number one, it sounded like you could have employed me as a full-time vet right there. You had a menagerie, you had a zoo. Yeah. and then I was thinking about, isn't it a healthy thing that we collect these lives? And so I was just going through our current menagerie, and so that looks like kind of up to 4 dogs, 3 cats, 5 chickens. And we've also got quite a lot of kids at home.
Yep.
And you think, can I just say that sometimes this is a very messy and inconvenient arrangement. Like, all of these things need feeding. All of these things create waste. And sometimes
they need attention too, as well, right? So
yeah. And sometimes they create heartache. Like, bad things happen. We had some 2 beautiful cats that we had gifted to our eldest daughters when they were 16, and these daughters are now in their 30s. So you can imagine that. I think it's one of the beauties, and one also of the tragedies of the pets that we share our lives with is, there is that saying. You think about the saying for your kids. They grow up so quickly. They're only with you for a short time. Certainly with our pets, they really are. But I think they live just long enough to get firmly entrenched into your heart, and then sometimes you have to say goodbye to them. So, so there's been all of those seasons. The season of kittens and the seasons of geriatric animals. What does your household look like now?
So currently, a 4-year-old dog child who is a hyper anxious, under-exercised Hungarian Vizsla who oscillates between curl up on the couch in the most sort of relaxed position to bouncing off the walls. So, and she, by the way, is the most well-traveled animal you've ever met. So here's her story. So She was born in Melbourne with a breeder. So, and as you probably know, during lockdown and just slightly before lockdown, these Hungarian Visualists suddenly took on this huge spike in demand, right? So you couldn't get them for love or money. And we'd fallen in, as a couple, we'd fallen in love with the breed, and we were like, okay, fine, we're going to do whatever it takes to get a Hungarian Visual. We were living in Singapore at the time. And so we placed this order on this breeder about a year before we got the dog. And so eventually we get the dog. She comes across as a 12-week-old pup. And so we have her for about, let's say 3 months in Singapore, just got her potty trained or whatever. And then job offer comes through to move to China. And so she's already emigrated to Singapore. And we're like, holy crap, how does one get a dog into China? Turns out it's quite easy. Anyway, so she traveled independently of us to Shenzhen, where she, for a small amount of money, became a Chinese national dog. And so that was the easy part, right? So she became a Chinese dog passport, you name it, the whole lot. And then we moved up to Shanghai. So flash forward 2 or 3 years, and we're like, okay, it's time to come back. This is just before COVID strikes, right? No idea COVID was coming. And so we thought, okay, there's 2 options to get her back. And my partner did months of research on this. Option 1 was to come back via Singapore, which was going to be all in all about $25,000 to $30,000 to get her back from memory. So a lot of money, right? And my dad, who's this very practical Sri Lankan guy, said, you could buy 5 dogs for that price. Why are you bringing this one dog back? Anyway, so the Malaysia option was about 20 grand. So I think it was about a $5,000 or $6,000 difference. So we go, okay, Malaysia. So my partner flew out one night at midnight from Shanghai airport, brought the dog to KL in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. And so she then had to board for, I think it was something like 8 weeks in Malaysia. Became a Malaysian dog because Australia, of course, won't allow importation of domestic animals from China. Then she could fly to Australia where she had another quarantine period, and then she was finally back with us. But yeah, she's the most well-traveled dog on the planet.
Okay, that's an incredible story, and it makes me think ahead to some of our future conversations, and so, like, it's such a rich, like, where do our dogs come from? And so just thinking about that whole, a breeder, a rescue, and just thinking, won't it be fascinating to explore some of the trends in that space, and also just to kind of unpack some of the I'm not sure you call them moral or ethical questions, but what's right? What's right in this space? And like, do we just make it up, or and where is society moving in this space? And then another whole conversation around how much is too much? Like, so like, you think as we're the custodians of these pets' lives. If there's major surgery that's required, the costs of relocation, like what's fair and right there, and then some of the practical things. How do we handle that as a society? How are different societies handling it?
And a lot of it's weaved into cultural norms. There's a lot of cultural norms there as well. So I love those topics. But just to add a little bit of color from the China experience or the Asian experience, right? And you've seen this because you've got a business in Singapore. Dog as child, yes, absolutely, it's a thing in Australia, but try multiplying it by 6x, 10x in China. We saw situations on the weekends. We were in a reasonably sort of upmarket area of Shanghai. Dogs in prams, right? Genuinely, dogs in prams. Big dogs, small dogs, by the way. Dogs in romper suits with diapers on, sort of thing. Like, it's fascinating. And again, to take a commercial perspective on it for a second, you can go to these pet shows in Shanghai, which are the size of football stadiums, packed with animal owners, animal lovers, just trying to buy cool stuff for their animals. Dogs, cats, fish, lizards, birds, you name it.
And so one of the things I want to go.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, just one of the things I'm looking forward to in our conversation is the just those different levels of sometimes as a vet, you're looking at pure health and welfare aspects of what we're doing, but then there's it's about the human-animal bond. It's about being able to to juggle what are some of the practicalities and what's the financial impact, and what should be, and what will we choose to be the driving force in all this. And I think if there's anything that have come to in a profession from a professional point of view is that like we can speak and make decisions, and oftentimes our pets can't. And so our highest duty is really that like the duty of care to act in their best interests.
Yeah.
I'm going to hop down off my soapbox right now.
Do you need a hand? I love that. But I mean, so here's the thing which blows me away, right? I think possibly because veterinarians like yourself are so approachable, such a big part of the community, people look at you guys and I think sometimes we forget that you've effectively done the equivalent of a medical degree, but not in one species, in 10, 20 species, right? So I guess, and it's a tough degree to get into, at least, I mean, when I grew up in New Zealand, I mean, it was a bloody tough degree to get into. Talk to us a little bit about that experience, and how do you, I guess a lot of your colleagues and yourself probably specialize in a particular species, do you? Or you focus on agricultural medicine or domestic animals, or how does it work?
Yeah, and I think it's a fascinating question, and it's something that has evolved. So it's 3.5 decades since I graduated. So just went to a 35th anniversary of our graduation. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, we used to just celebrate on the 10s, like 10 years graduated, 20 years graduated, 30 years graduated. I think by the time you get to 30 years, some of your perspectives starting to change. Sometimes when you go back to your graduations, not everyone's there anymore. That's right. Thing. And I think vets were always good at having a party. And so we thought, why wait another 10 years? Let's party at 5. So what graduation, and that's been such a fascinating opportunity to hear people's stories. What's the last 35 years look like? And many people have. And
so what are these guys doing?
Such a diversity of things. Many people working outside of the profession. So that could be in the government, in drug companies, sometimes teaching, and sometimes I suppose people like me, I've experienced such a diversity of almost like an occupational gypsy, moving from one occupation to another. And I'm so grateful for the grounding really that the veterinary science was, which was, I think of it as a science degree, which is really just about understanding the world and how it works, and also having that problem solving, the ability to observe. And so what we were really trained in is to observe, diagnose, and prescribe. And that core skill, it serves in so many places.
It's
What has happened within the profession largely has been that the rural industries, so the farming industries in many places are doing it pretty tough. And so most of the vets who graduate are working in small animal practice. There are people working in zoo vet and some like conservation vet. I think it's really it's such a blessed profession in the scope of what you can turn it to, because of the diversity of the species we deal with. So it's been great.
Yeah. So tell me, so this podcast, or this video podcast, is called A Modern Animal. And I think, it's our inaugural episode, if you like. So this is hopefully the beginning of something really cool. What are some of the topics you want to cover? What are some of the areas you want to dig to? So it's not just going to be, just for the people watching and listening at home, it's not just going to be Mike and I rabbiting on about ourselves for the whole next 6 years. It's gonna the intent is to have a whole bunch of really interesting people to kind of bring in, whether they're veterinarians, whether they're naturopaths, herbalists, whether they're animal behaviorists, whether they're dog trainers, you name it. What are you thinking? What kind of areas do you think we should cover? I mean, given that it's 2021 right now when we're recording this, almost Christmas, the things we hear people talking about are, God, my anxious dog, or my dog's got gastrointestinal issues, or I can't seem to train this guy, or my cat just won't sleep. What else are you seeing out there?
I'm just going to shout it out right now. I have never met a cat who couldn't sleep. They are They are gifted sleepers, right? Everything else I can relate to. And so I'm thinking that this is such a lovely space to play in, because there's so much emotion around that, the human-animal bond. And it's, it's worthwhile saying that, anything which has got that much scope for joy has also got so much scope for frustration and anxiety and grief. And if you pick, there's a saying, you pick up one end of the stick, you pick up the other. And so really, I think any time we can have a conversation where we can add value to that human-animal bond, then we're playing in the right space. And what we know is that people who gravitate to this space, they're strong-flavored people. They are strong-flavored people, and they're people with stories. And I think we just really need to hear those stories. And we've got to touch on the things that are thinking about those trends: obesity, anxiety, the things associated with an aging pet population. As we do better and better at caring for our pets, so that they're living well into their teens and even into their late teens, there are going to be issues there, senile. So that it's going to be around cognitive, how they're going with just relating to their environment, how they're going in their joints, and dealing with arthritis conditions. So there's, I think, let's have a conversation where we can be real, hear the stories, and add some value.
Yep. No, I totally agree. And I'd encourage people listening as well, obviously, as we build the audience, to kind of don't be afraid to reach out to us and say, hey, these are the issues that I'm worried about. I can't get a straight answer out of my local vet on this matter. Can you tell me what should I be doing about XYZ? So I think, is it fair to say, Mike, that you're possibly more integrative, and we can discuss what that term means in your approach than perhaps your classical veterinarian?
Yeah, it's certainly, I think it's something that many vets go on a journey from a pure science, where it was basically antibiotics and corticosteroids, and that was about it. And I'm even thinking of the journey of the decades, and just that broader appreciation. I think if you saw, I'm encouraged as I see the veterinary profession, and so I see and acknowledge of whether it be chiropractic or acupuncture or natural therapies, that there is a generation who would look at me and say, hey, Mike, keep up, man. If you can. So that's encouraging. I think that makes me proud to be part of this profession.
Yeah, no, good. All right, so curly questions for you.
Go.
We're coming into Christmas. Families are getting together, or families are going to be apart. Obviously, sometimes the forgotten member of the family is the dog or the cat or the bird or the goldfish or whatever, right?
Yeah.
What should people be doing to ensure the well-being, and I mean that in the holistic sense, the well-being of their animals during the holiday season?
Yeah, and I think there are a couple of things that come to mind that are just so practical and pragmatic, and really these come from years of seeing the casualties of the Christmas season, or already just festive season altogether. And so it's just some really big ones, and it's kind of starting at New Year's Eve and working back. And so many, especially our dogs, have got that firecracker anxiety. And so creating the safe space, and this is not something new. Those sort of anxieties come on over time. So just either having medications on hand, or having people standing by, or knowing how to handle a really anxious pet, around a time when there's firecrackers. Then coming back into just something that a really classic problem is pancreatitis, like acute pancreatitis, and that's when the cutest looking dog with the sad eyes goes to every single person at the Christmas Day barbecue and sells this convincing story through their eyes. They said, what?
Is that a thing?
I'm missing out. I haven't. Absolutely. They just say, I haven't eaten a thing, not one thing all day. Just have this little sausage. So they just get a belly full of fat food that they would never normally have access to.
No.
And then just end up with either just like a really acute gastrointestinal thing, diarrhea, tragic stuff, or something much more serious than that. And so it's actually about, just eyeballing every guest as they come in and say, guess what? Hugo has been fed today, and it's a no. And they go, it's the same rule for everyone. Do not do it. Just another couple of super quick things. Pool safety. It sounds silly.
Yes.
Pools, rivers, and dams. We definitely have dogs that die every year. And the other thing, which happened to us last night as we set up for an early Christmas event, was just that coming and going. So we've got a gorgeous, cheeky little girl called Flora. What a name, Flora. But when the front door's open, she just does the bolt.
Yes.
It's just some of that perimeter security stuff. So there's a couple of things to think about. Make it good for them as well for us.
Can I tell you my New Year's Eve horror story?
Yeah, do it.
So New Year's Eve horror story. I think I dropped the kids off at their mum's, brought the dog because they love the dog, of course. The dog, mum's house is not very clean because there's a lot of people running around. Dog went off to play, ate something, wasn't observed when she ate something, and we think it may, on future reflection, have been a corn cob or something like that. Anyway, ate something, then spent the next 2 days before New Year's progressively vomiting, losing weight, just looking very, very sorry for herself. So, okay, bugger it. Let's go to the animal hospital. So off we went. I think it was New Year's Eve. Checked her in, had a series of x-rays. Oh, yes, there's definitely something there. We're going to have to keep her in for observation, endoscopy, da-da-da-da-da. So anyway, flash forward, no pet insurance, right? $6,000 later. Oh, wow. She passed the corn cob on her own. But this was the whole of it. Yeah, this was the whole of New Year's. So back and forth to SASH, the animal hospital, and trying to get rid of a corn cob. But they were talking surgery, they were talking all sorts of stuff. But yeah, you're right. I mean, just keeping an eye on the animal is probably rule number one.
That's good. Yeah, we could just a little bit of intentionality means they're going to enjoy it as much as we do.
Exactly. What do you think? So it used to be that when you spoke about dog supplements, for example, that it was all, my dog's got funny tummy and runny stools and all the rest of it. Everything we hear now is, I need something to calm this guy down or calm this girl down. What's driving that?
Yeah,
in your view, and maybe it's a longer conversation.
I think it really is, and if we were going to touch on it, it would probably be about number one. It would be just a reflection of the interaction that they're experiencing. Just the fact that oftentimes we're absent from the home quite a lot, and then when we're present, oftentimes we're super glued to them because we've been missing them all day, and so that combination of feast and famine, as from an emotional point of view, is a pretty tough. It's a pretty tough thing for them to navigate. Given that if you're thinking about the companionness of dog, the packedness of them, and when you see them, so we've got 3 dog beds for our 2 dogs, but our 2 dogs sleep in 1 dog bed because why wouldn't you sleep right on top of the other one? And so when we're with them, we're just hyper loving them, and that and that's just like we're compressing a whole day's worth of love into a couple of hours we've got with them. You can imagine that when we're not there, perhaps the vacuum of emotions feels even
I hadn't thought of that, actually.
More tangible to them against the backdrop of the pampering that they've had. So,
and that's possibly
the tricky thing is.
Sorry, I was going to say that's possibly, beg your pardon, that's possibly because of this sort of amplification of contact during lockdown. So everyone's working from home, the dog's at your feet, you pop to the kitchen, he comes with you, you pop to the bathroom, he comes with you, at least if you're in my house, to suddenly then you're out of the house, nothing, exactly, you're back in the office.
Yeah, and so and the dilemma is, what are our options in this space? So is the option, don't love them when we're with them? That's not working for anyone. And so I think there is a longer conversation there, and perhaps for many situations like this, the first step is an awareness and an acceptance of what's actually going on. Let's unpack that one further, because that is such a
it
big
feels
topic.
like there's maybe a couple of episodes in that, because there's psychology, there's behavioral aspects, as you say, there's possibly even sort of dietary elements to it as well.
Yeah. And let's talk to people who are way smarter than us. I know some. Let's do it.
Exactly. All right. Well, that's probably a great place, I guess, to wrap, unless there was anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, I was probably just wanted a small insight into your pet Christmas. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, good question. So we're going to Singapore Thursday this week. And so we've organized, because visualers, as you guys probably know, very particular breed, takes a particular type of weird person to look after them. So we've got her booked in, staying with another visualer mum for a week. And then I'm back, and then she's with us. She's with myself and my kids for the Christmas period. So pretty casual stuff. I think pretty low key this year. Hopefully a bit of beach time. So she loves to swim. Not that I'm building every single day of the holidays around the dog, but she loves a run and she loves a swim. So we'll try and work a few of those in. Are you guys going away? You're gonna take some time off?
Quiet Christmas at home this time, and it'll be just more of the same. A little bit of time at the beach. Got a beach holiday planned at a dog friendly house. So that works for us. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, Gabe, great to hang out with you, and look forward to future conversations.
Thank you. And Mike, thank you very much for your time. We will be back in the new year. And I think we'll start off with this calm and anxiety issue that we've been discussing today as our next topic.
Sure. That'd be good. I think it's worthwhile. It's a pretty big topic. Yeah. Let's see if we can add some value.
Thanks for tuning in to A Modern Animal. I'm Gabriel Perera. You were just hearing from Dr. Mike Woodrow. We'll be back in 2022 and look forward to seeing you all then. Have a great Christmas. Stay safe. Look after your animals and watch that front door. See you, everyone.